The HemCon bandage was actually one of the first hemostatic agents to be designed. It actually was designed and developed here in Portland, Oregon by a cardiologist who previously worked at my medical center. It was fairly rigid, a little bit of a wafer 4 inches by 4 inches, and it's chitosan. The engineers hate when I massively oversimplify things, but I'm going to do it anyway. Chitosan is basically ground up shrimp shell. That's not entirely true. It comes from crustacean shells, but it's close enough. Some people ask the question, well, if I'm allergic to shellfish or seafood, is that a problem? No, there's no cross-reactivity. And it actually forms this mucoadherent barrier with the bleeding blood vessels. Again, it was the first, and it was the Army's agent of choice from its inception in 2003 through 2008. There have been multiple animal studies as well as 2 human clinical studies looking at its efficacy. One of those studies was done in Afghanistan. It involved a lot of Special Operations Forces medics using this bandage. When the drug rep first told me about it, he sung the praises of how well it worked. But when you read the fine print in the article, one of the casualties had a nail gun injury to his hand, on which they put a $154 bandage. I'm not sure I find that literature compelling. An EMS agency in my area did field these bandages and did a study on it. I know one of the paramedics involved in that study, and he told me many stories about casualties who received $154 bandages for head wounds. Head wounds do bleed a lot. It's not unreasonable to use a bandage there, but it doesn't necessarily tell me that this bandage is a life-saving device. 2 out of 41 of the pigs tested with this model did survive for 3 hours. That's not very good. 6 survived 2 hours, but then rebled later and ultimately expired. This agent was abandoned by the Department of Defense in 2008 because, as my daughter used to say when she was young, it no works. And again, it was a very expensive bandage. It's no longer being marketed. This is another similarly arid hemostatic agent called QuickClot. The previous version is on your right. It's a powder. Neither of these are being manufactured anymore. A slightly more updated version on the left of your slide where this powder is actually in a little tea bag or pledget. This is zeolite. It is a powder. It's a hard granule and it absorbs water. And in the process of absorbing water, it concentrates blood. It does, however, cause an exothermic reaction and generate heat. This was the Army's second agent of choice. If the HemCon bandage didn't work, then you went to the QuickClot. The Marine Corps fielded this extensively. And in 2008, when this USA ISR standard 6mm femoral punch model was created as the standard, it was horrible. It didn't work at all. Not a single animal survived 3 hours, and it was abandoned. Not only did it not work well, when it comes in contact with liquid like sweat and water, it actually generates this huge exothermic reaction of 95 degrees Celsius. If you're not Celsius literate, 100 Celsius is boiling water. Starbucks says your coffee to be properly brewed should be 90 Celsius. So here you are, an American serviceman in Iraq, and you catch some spall, some metal fragment up into your shoulder. It looks fairly superficial, but yes, there are some subclavian vasculature there. Sometimes wounds are deeper than they look. I definitely agree with that. And your Marine buddy comes up and does exactly as he was trained to do with the widget he was given and slaps a tea bag full of QuickClot on and then burns you and gives you second-degree burns. So not only is it bad that you had your penetrating trauma, here's a big hot pot of coffee right on top of it. This agent, again, is no longer being manufactured. This is WoundStat. This is another agent that's no longer being manufactured. To me, it looks like kitty litter. This is a granular blend of a cementite mineral as well as a very absorbent polymer. When the ISR model was developed in 2008, this was studied in that model, and it was a clear winner. It worked amazingly well. It outperformed all the other gauzes that were tested. The DoD purchased quite a bit. They rapidly sent it forward to theater. And a very short time later, they pulled it all back from theater. As there was more research that came out in experimental animals, they found that, yeah, it clotted bleeding blood vessels like nobody's business. But sometimes the mineral would get in the blood vessels and it would embolize elsewhere in the animal. We're not aware of any human injury from this, but because it was a risk for stroke, embolization of some of these clumps of mineral into your brain, it was abandoned and the military pulled it all back and ceased using it.